Started on the webinar today then. Well, thank you so much for joining and taking some time out of your afternoon. The webinar today is going to be all about our postgraduate teacher apprenticeship, and we're going to have a focus on upskilling your existing workforce. So just to do a few introductions, my name is Eve. I'm the Partnership Success Manager here at Best Practice, and I also have my colleague Chloe, who is also joining the webinar today. She's going to be given a bit of an overview on the programme and mentoring, but yeah, she's our head of IT too. Don't know if you want to give a quick hello, Chloe.
Hi everybody, great to meet you all.
Just to give you the heads up, we are going to be recording this webinar as we'll be sending out afterwards, sorry. However, your cameras and mics are turned off, and as you can see, the Q&A box is open. So if you just want to pop any questions you have throughout, we'll try and answer them throughout the actual webinar, but we will also be having some time at the end of the webinar to go through some questions as well. So just to go through a bit of an agenda for today. So first of all, we're going to cover who we are at Best Practice Network. Some of you might already be familiar with us, but we'll just give you a bit of an overview. I'll also be going over a bit of an overview on the actual programme, upskilling staff members and the benefits. And then, like I said, Chloe will be coming on and giving a programme overview and also talking about the mentoring. And we also have a video clip from our mentor and trainee from this programme to give they talk about a bit of their experiences, which is really good. So hopefully that video will work for you. And then also I'll give some information about the funding and the grants, and then just the next steps on how you can apply. So who are we at Best Practice Network? So we're an accredited national ICT provider. We're also an apprenticeship provider for a few different programmes. So we look after early years apprenticeships, and we also have the teaching assistant level 3 apprenticeship as well. And we currently have over 2,000 people on programme. We're an accredited lead provider for ECF and MPQs. So as you can see from the diagram, we do have programmes suitable from people from trainee teacher all the way up to school leader. We're an Ofsted outstanding provider, and we've won a few awards. So we've won the Education and Childcare Apprenticeship Provider of the Year for the past 2 years, which is something that we're really proud of. So to give you a bit of an overview on the actual programme, so we currently offer the postgraduate apprenticeship in a few different pathways. So we offer it in primary 3 to 7, 5 to 11, and also primary SEND. We also have secondary in 9 subjects. So the 9 subjects are maths, English, the 3 sciences, French, Spanish, geography, and computing. There are a few entry requirements for this apprenticeship. So for the trainee, they are going to need to have a degree 2 and above. But they're also going to need to have GCSEs grades C and above in maths and English. If they're interested in primary, they will also need to have science. And then also they're going to need to be a resident in the UK for the past 3 years. So upskilling your staff members, so the main focus of today's webinar. So it's really looking at providing development opportunities to support staff looking into their next steps of the teaching. So suitable roles that this will include are cover supervisors, teaching assistants, HTLs and learning support assistants. So anybody really who meets the entry requirements, who has an interest in wanting to get into teaching is suitable for this programme. And then what are the benefits of upskilling? So firstly, growing your own. So being able to maximise the potential of your support staff through development and training. So for schools, it's less costly to upskill or reskill an existing employee than to hire a new employee to fill widening skills gaps. It's also funded training. So costs of training are covered by the apprenticeship levy. So just a bit of a fun fact. So 30% of the top 10 most Google questions about employee training mention the word paid. So one of the great things about the apprenticeship is that the trainee is receiving a salary whilst also gaining that qualification. And then also improve retention, so boost employee motivation by investing in their development. So another little bit of a fun fact, so with recent research revealing 32% of employees in the UK changed their jobs because their employer did not offer any upskilling or training opportunities. So I'm actually going to hand you over to Chloe now, who's going to go through the programme overview.
Thanks, Eve. So as Eve mentioned, we offer primary and secondary ITT programmes. They are level 6 programmes that lead to the award of qualified teacher status. They follow an 80-20 model with student teachers undertaking school-based training, so in a school setting, 4 days a week, Monday to Thursday, and the Fridays are the off-the-job training that's spent engaging with our sort of planned taught curriculum that's delivered by the BPN team. You can see from the diagram on the screen that the programme starts in the final week of August with an apprenticeship induction. The apprentices have to undertake a bit of pre-programme reading and some tasks as part of those induction days, and it's the sort of designated first day of learning activity. In September, they then go into school, begin their school-based training. So as I mentioned before, they start that, and that runs 4 days a week, Monday to Thursday. So they're in with their employer school from September to December, so in the autumn term. And during that time, they will have a teaching timetable that's made up of the classes from their training phase and or their subject if they're secondary. The exact proportion in terms of the teaching timetable will vary depending on the apprentice's experience. So if you've got somebody who's really experienced, they've perhaps been working as an unqualified teacher in your school, they might be able to take a greater proportion of a teaching timetable from the start of the program than somebody who is more of a sort of novice teacher, or perhaps has been in a very different role within your school and beginning the apprenticeship program from a different starting point. So we can sort of be responsive really to the apprentice's need as well as the school's need when we're thinking about their teaching commitment. So they're in school, as I mentioned, those 4 days, and when they're not in school the Friday, they're undertaking the taught BPN programme of study. That's comprised of things like core training, which is based around general sort of teaching and learning principles and what the evidence says about what makes really effective teaching, as well as subject and curriculum webinars. And for secondary, it also includes some behaviour webinars as well. Those are delivered through a blended approach, a mixture of online and face-to-face workshops. We also deliver on both primary and secondary programs some enhancement webinars. Those are very much in response to the needs of the trainees and also sort of emerging national and local priorities. So I imagine come September, there might be some new initiatives that come through from the Department for Education. And so it's about developing them really as a professional and their professional understanding of what it means to be a teacher within their phase or subject. The apprentice also undertakes some independent learning, which is comprised of things like online study packs, reading and research, reflections and presentations and things like that. And throughout the programme, they have this wraparound care. So they have a personal tutor who's employed by BPN who'll visit them out on placement and undertake observations of them. And they'll also need a school-based mentor. So somebody who works within your setting, who knows your school really well, who's an expert in this phase or subject, who can really work closely with them throughout the programme, guide them through, provide that expert training and also that pastoral care as well. And so those three people, the apprentice, the personal tutor and the school mentor all work together really throughout the programme. In terms of how the programme evolves then over the remainder of the year, you'll see that in term 2, from the first 6 weeks of term 2, from January to February half term, are spent actually in a different school. So in order to be awarded qualified teacher status, a student teacher needs to undertake 2 placements in 2 different schools. So in that first half term in spring 1, all apprentices will go to another contrasting school and undertake a 6-week placement so that they get a broad understanding of what teaching and learning looks like within different schools, different localities, and when working with different cohorts. After that placement is complete, they'll return to their employer school and they'll stay there right the way through until the end of the programme. So from February half term, right the way through the remainder of that academic year. In the July, we make the recommendation for qualified teacher status, assuming that your student teacher has made the expected progress throughout the programme. And in the following autumn term, the apprentice goes through the tripartite gateway meeting in order to be able to undertake what we call their endpoint assessment. And that's really the final assessment that awards them their apprenticeship. So the assessment of student teachers on the apprenticeship programme is twofold. There is the award of the QTS in the July time, and also that completion of the apprenticeship with the endpoint assessment that happens in the following autumn term. Some of you might have some questions about how that works in terms of their contract. Ideally, they would have a contract that covers the duration of the apprenticeship, so that begins in August and runs right through until the end of the following autumn term. But we do have some apprentices on our current primary programme who have a contract that actually runs just for this academic year, and they will then go and start their ECT post in September at a different school, but they will need to undertake that endpoint assessment in their new school in order to complete the apprenticeship side of that qualification. So it's a two-part thing that needs to happen there. And both Eve and myself are happy to answer any questions about that, because we understand that it's quite a sort of complex idea later on in the session if there's anything, if that's raised any queries for you. Next slide, please, Eve. Thank you. So you might be wondering a little bit about what our curriculum covers in terms of the centre-based training. That's the training that's delivered by Best Practice Network. So as I mentioned before, we have those core training sessions, those subject and curriculum webinars, and for secondary, we have those behaviour webinars as well. Our curriculum is centred around our vision and values, and you can see that in that diagram on the right-hand side of the screen, that's really sits at the heart of our curriculum plan. The three areas that surround that, the curriculum delivery, the development of the teacher, and the behaviour and classroom management, are sort of those three strands that we aim to develop in our student teachers, so they become experts within their subject or phase, that they become highly professional teachers who have really fantastic behaviour and classroom management skills. And we do that through the delivery of our programme, which is divided into those 6 modules that were shown in the purple ring there. So things like they engage with thematic modules, so things about high quality assessment, for example, and how to create a culture for learning. And all of those are underpinned by the initial teacher training and early career framework. So our programme will blend seamlessly with the materials that they get when they then become early career teachers. You might be wondering a little bit about how they're assessed throughout the programme. So we assess their teaching practice. That's largely undertaken by the mentor in school, so they will observe them on a regular basis. For primary, the school-based mentor is expected to observe the student teacher twice a half term. For secondary, it's weekly. We also, the personal tutor, when they come and visit them in school, once a half term, they will undertake that joint observation with the mentor, again, of the student teacher's practice, so we can triangulate how they're applying the information that they're getting in their centre-based training within their school-based setting. They also undertake some formative written assessments throughout the year. So they complete things like monthly reflections around their practice and how they're making the connections between the theory and the practice in school. But really the biggest piece of work they do have to submit is a 3,500 word reflective account that's due in the summer term. And student teachers need to pass that in order to be able to demonstrate the level 6 requirement of this programme. And then, of course, as we're talking about apprentices here, there is also the requirement that they pass that endpoint assessment as well. I think I mentioned before about the school mentor needing to be a specialist in their phase or subject. And then, as I said, they will have a personal tutor too. Thank you, Eve. So you might be wondering a little bit more about what the mentoring looks like, and some of you will be aware that the Department for Education has introduced some new mentor training requirements that start from September. So we've shared this flyer with our partner schools. So hopefully somebody in your organisation, if not yourself, has received this, but we can reshare it again with the slides from this presentation, which just breaks down what's changing in terms of mentoring. In terms of just giving you a really brief overview, all ITT mentors are now required to complete an initial 20 hours of training in order to be able to mentor a student teacher. They just need to complete those initial 20 hours once, and then following that, they'll complete what we call a 6 hours sort of top-up refresher training on an annual basis. There is funding available from the government to support the cost of mentor training for the next academic year. And there's more information about what funding you can expect to receive and how you might choose to use that funding on that flyer. So have a look at that in a bit more detail and come back to us if you've got any questions about it. I think I'm handing back to you now, Eve, aren't I, for the next part of the presentation?
Yes, you are. And I've got a video which I'm hoping is going to play. So bear with me a second.
I think at this point, I'm now going to hand over to Michaela and Catherine, who are going to talk to you a little bit about their experiences.
Hello, so my name's Michaela and I'm currently enrolled on the ITT course. I have worked at my current school for 8 years as a TA, and then the opportunity came for me to enroll on this course and become the year 1 class teacher, which was an amazing opportunity. So I started the course in September 2023, and we had our first ITAT week, which was really informative. I really enjoyed being out of class and being able to learn on the job. So alongside that, we had some work that you complete alongside your ITAT week at the end. So on a Friday, you have your time to complete any outstanding work with support from your mentor and your tutor. And then after Christmas, you then have your 6 weeks placement, which I found really, really useful to be able to have the opportunity to go and work in another school and see how they learn and how they develop and how different their school and their status might be, which is amazing. And then I've come back to my school and I've completed now up to ITAT 4. So I'm now in the last section of my ITT course. It's always been an opportunity and a dream for me to achieve becoming a teacher. And then I wanted a family, so I had my family and put my career on hold a little bit. And then this came about where I could gain my QTS alongside my job rather than coming out of my job, which was just worked really well for me. Went hand in hand with me having experience at my school. So yeah, really enjoyed it. It's been very, very informative, very useful. And with the support of the in-class mentor, which is really, really beneficial, I'm now hopefully going to achieve my QTS at the end of it and be able to come a class teacher and achieve my dream, which has been amazing. I'm going to pass you on to my mentor, who is Catherine.
Oh, hi. I'm pretty sure Michaela is going to pass. She has really engaged with the programme and has made sure that she's had full attendance, and she's really, wherever, for example, she wasn't sure what to do, she has emailed a tutor within an hour and come back to me and told me she knows what to do. And best practice have been quite good at emailing back very quickly and supporting her to make sure we had the answers to achieve. So the big thing that I wanted to talk about was the weekly guidance notes. Any courses that I've known of before, the ECT mentoring, I don't think you get that level of support as a mentor. And my head says, oh no, you'd have been a brilliant mentor without that. But I really believe that it gives a starting point each week. It also gives me an insight into the Friday learning sessions without having to attend them. because obviously I'm in class teaching, but I know what Michaela should have learnt about, what she needs to understand to complete her reflections. I can just check in with her, just 2 words, hinge questions. Do you know what they are? And you know what you're doing? Do you need me? Do you want me to go through that with you? So I found that really useful, and I've been able to just check in and say, oh, I've had an email today in the weekly guidance. It says that you should have uploaded 2 documents onto Mosaic. Have you done that? As a mentor, I've been really lucky that Michaela's already done everything I ask, because she basically is just following the program step by step. And as long as you do that and you keep up to date, as hard as it is, I'm not saying it's been easy, she's worked her socks off, but as hard as it is, if you keep up to date like Michaela has, then you can manage it and you can become a teacher and get QTS. I feel like the weekly guidance gives me ideas of how to support her with the upcoming expectations and what I should look out for in her next observation. So the requirements of the mentor are that you complete a weekly informal observation, but within each half term, there's 2 formal observations, which are a little bit more in depth and focus more clearly on every aspect of the 5 aspects, as opposed to just looking at strengths and weaknesses or areas for development. So when we completed the informal observation on the week after she'd been studying behaviour management techniques, that's what I would look out for in her informal observation. So that was great. And it's just a reminder to keep in touch. Michaela's in year 1 and I'm in year 2. And although we work together, sometimes we don't speak. Yeah. We don't see each other. I'm sure anybody in that role will understand. So that weekly email that tells me what she should be learning and what I should be speaking to her about and mentoring her with helps me to keep in touch, to check in with her, to make sure her work is done, and just to see if she needs any help along the way. I have found really useful, we were sent a formal observation template that was filled in, and that really helped me then to look at how much detail to include and how to apply what I'd observed in the format that was asked of me. So I thought that was really useful, and I haven't actually asked Michaela yet, but with her permission, I would like to offer some of her informal and formal observations for the next year's course if you want them, because
I think that'd be really, really beneficial as a bit of a guideline to see what the expectations are.
I think for the trainee, sometimes they're not sure what the mentor is looking for. So I know as soon as I walk through the door, Michaela thinks, here she is again. But I think the more you're observed and the more feedback you get, the much easier it is to know what the mentor is looking for and not to feel scared. So those weekly mentor observations are important for your confidence. The impact on school is that Michaela has definitely developed a wealth of knowledge. I feel like compared to PGCE students we have in school, Michaela has learned more. I feel like she's grown in confidence massively, and since she came back from the 6-week placement at the other school, I think it's quite important, even though constraints on staffing and head teachers might find that the tricky bit, covering that 6 weeks, for the trainee, it's absolutely incredible. And she's so self-assured, and she just came back a teacher, a really confident teacher. It's really, really lovely to see. And observing her over the last, I'd say, 6 to 8 weeks is a real pleasure, watching how much she's grown on the course. So well done, Michaela.
Thank you very much. Really nice.
Thank you.
Thanks both. I was just going to ask one question, actually, which might be quite useful. What do you think the benefit is of sort of having Michaela already in the school and has kind of progressed and upskilled, I guess, is the sort of theme of this conversation, compared to bringing somebody new in? I mean, what do you think that there's, what do you think those benefits are that she was already with the school and was able to kind of move up through that route?
That's a really good question. I've got a PGCE student currently with me in year 2, and the difference between her and Michaela is quite huge. And I think Michaela was already aware of the behaviour expectations, how to log first aids, how to log safeguarding concerns. So I feel like she's had to learn less than the person who's new to the school. So it's important that 6 weeks at another school, you go and learn a different way of doing those things. But having her here already with a wealth of knowledge of the school and knowledge of the pupils and the expectations has reduced the amount of mentor support as well.
Fab, that's great. Thank you both. Really appreciate you
you.
coming on and talking to people about about your experience.
Amazing. I'm really happy that video worked, because Catherine and Michaela joined our last webinar, and I just thought it was so informative and interesting to hear their experiences of the programme. So yeah, really happy that managed to work. And just to go through kind of employee grants, so there are currently employee grants available to secondary schools taking on apprentices this year. It's a really good incentive for schools to utilise, as the grants are paid directly to the school, and they'll go towards things like the trainee salary. So for example, 28,000 for a chemistry, computing, maths or physics student. All the subjects we do offer provide the grant, however the amount varies on the subject. But yeah, I just thought it'd be quite interesting to put that up for you to see, for any of you secondary people. And then also funding. So there are 3 types of funding available for this programme. The first one would be levy funded. So schools and trusts will pay directly into the apprenticeship levy. If you're a state maintained school, you will pay into the apprenticeship levy, but it'll be managed by the local authority. And then we've got co-investment. So if you're a non-levy school, you'll be contributing 5% of the course, and then the government then will cover the 95%. So that would mean the total cost of the course is £450, and that will be paid monthly. There is also levy transfer. So there are 2 ways to access levy transfers. You can either pay a school directly from your own apprenticeship levy to help them with the funding, or you can apply for any unspent levy from other levy organisations, and we can also help you access this as well. And we did also want to touch on our trainee teacher directory today. So for any schools looking for any newly recruited trainees, we have launched our trainee teacher directory this year. Some of you may have already seen or registered to it, but on the directory, you can access the nationals that have applied to join our September cohort that are still looking for placements in schools. If you scan the QR code, you can access the directory and register. And then once registered, you'll be able to see profiles and do things like request interviews. And then just to go through some steps on how to apply. On to September.
Eve, I wasn't sure whether that was just for me or whether it was for everybody, but I think you possibly froze during that last slide. So you might just want to repeat what you just said just one last time in terms of the next steps.
Yeah, just the steps to apply. Okay, no worries. Yeah, so like I said, it was just a really easy process for existing members of staff to apply onto the programme. So the steps they need to follow, so they apply directly to our website. Our placement team make contact and confirm their eligibility. They'll also confirm their suitability for the programme, so that will include a short maths and English test. Once this has then been done, we will be able to help support you access the funding and enrol the trainee ready for September. And just to go through some headline benefits with you then. So For an apprentice teacher, they're gaining a salaried employment on the unqualified teacher salary. It's also funded in the way of the apprenticeship levy. And then for a school, the benefits include a grant of up to 28,000 for secondary schools. You're filling an otherwise vacant post. You're gaining a student teacher in class and teaching 4 days a week. Also the opportunity to upskill a member of your support staff. And then also there's a mentor grant available of up to £1,000 per apprentice. And lastly, just before we go on to the questions, I just wanted to quickly go over our teaching assistant level 3 apprenticeship. This is a really good apprenticeship for anyone looking to gain a further qualification, but doesn't quite meet the eligibility requirements for this apprenticeship. For schools, it's also a really good opportunity for you to spend your apprenticeship levy. So just to go over a bit of an overview on the programme, it's ideal for anyone working in or looking for a career in a teaching support role. All learners will develop the skills and behaviours required to support teachers to enhance pupil learning either in groups or individually. And then it's a really nice apprenticeship where they're able to personalise their pathway with a choice of specialist modules. And this apprenticeship is 15 months plus a 3-month endpoint assessment. We are also holding a webinar for this on the 19th of June. If you scan the QR code, it will bring up a link to register. And I'll also send up a bit of a follow-up in the email that I send out after today. And yeah, that was the end of the webinar. Thank you for joining.